Put somebody in camera is not good, right?
Ah,
Right?
yeah, put them in camera. That's something we can
Criticize,
about.
right? I'm not sure. But
David just used that expression, in camera, meaning to put me in the range of the camera. But that we use that as an expression. I think it might be a Latin expression from the Latin language, which is now a dead language, but it is carried over into medicine, it's carried over into politics and so on. So we speak of an in-camera session. And that would be when there is a meeting and certain leaders are excluded from the meeting. For example, at my church, we have pastors and we have a board, B-O-A-R-D, another word with multiple meanings, but a board is a leadership group. And the leadership group, the board, meets with the lead pastor, the senior pastor, once per month. And usually at the end of the meeting we have an in-camera session when the lead pastor leaves the meeting and the board can simply talk amongst themselves without the lead pastor there. That's called an in-camera session. And I think this word camera in Latin might mean something like legislature or something, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's an in-camera session. And you might wonder, why would the board want to meet without the lead pastor? It's because the lead pastor is an employee of the church, and the board represents the employer, the church. So occasionally the board wishes to speak about things as to how the lead pastor is doing, or other things they may want to discuss. So if you hear of an in-camera session, that's what that is. Our city council, sometimes the meetings of the city council are public. If you wish to go down to City Hall, you can sit in the audience, the gallery, and watch, and they will discuss. But every once in a while they will have an in-camera session, and the public must leave, and they will just talk amongst themselves. That's when you want to be just very honest in your thoughts, and you don't want everyone to hear everything that you are saying. That's an in-camera session. I'll put my glasses down. So we'll pick up Paul's letter to the Philippians. Remember, Paul is in prison, probably in Rome, and he's writing to a church in the city of Philippi, which is in modern-day Greece, northern Greece. And this is a church that he founded or began. So he loves these people. So he's writing to let them know how he is. I guess, does anyone write letters today? Any of you write letters?
No. With handwriting?
With handwriting. No, it's almost a lost art today, isn't it? How is your script? Can you still write well, your Mandarin script?
No.
No? Are you losing that as well?
Yeah.
I guess there is less reason for it, isn't there, with modern computers and, of course, texting and email and so on. You don't need to develop that skill. In Canada, our children are more and more not learning what we call cursive writing. You've heard that expression, cursive writing. See if you can read my cursive writing. My writing's not that good. But oops, made a mistake. Can you read my cursive writing?
Yes.
That's called cursive writing. So, as opposed, this would be printing. So that would be printing in capital letters.
I like the cursive.
Cursive writing. At one time, it was an art in the English-speaking world. I think probably in many countries, it was an art to be able to write well, and the product was worth keeping. It was like an art creation. I suspect that's true of the kinds of they're not really letters, are they, that you use in Chinese writing? Characters, I guess you call them, not
We call
letters.
it calligraphy.
We call it what?
Calligraphy.
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 Yeah, we use that expression as well, calligraphy. Calligraphy in English is very fancy cursive writing, very fancy. And there are different kinds of scripts with lots of swirls and things that makes it very pretty. So I suspect there were people in China in past times whose specialty was this calligraphy to create beautiful writing. So anyway, Paul wrote in the Greek language, and he would have had a person writing for him, and he would have, we call it dictating. He would have spoken the words, and his the person would have written them down. So we call those, in the ancient world, we call those people scribes. A scribe was someone who had a special skill in writing. Sorry, you can't see that very well, Tim. Who had a special skill in writing. And in Paul's world, most people were illiterate. That is, they could not read nor write. It was very much an oral culture. I suspect the same was true in Chinese history as well, that there were periods where most people could not read nor write. And so to be able to write was a special skill. And if you wanted to make a contract, an agreement with someone, the two parties would go to a scribe who would write out the agreement and sign it and seal it and so on. Paul would have used a scribe, a friend, to write this down. But let's read the paragraph from verse 12 through verse 14. Maybe we'll start on this side today. David, if you would find that. Philippians 1 and verse 12. And then Tim 13, and then we'll skip right on to verse 14. We'll skip way for verse 14. So, okay, anytime you're ready, David, you have it.
112, right?
112.
Yeah. Now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel.
As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guard and everyone else that I am in chains for Christ.
Okay, and would you read verse 14?
Because of my chains, most of the brothers in the Lord have been encouraged to speak the word of God more courageously and fearlessly.
Okay, thank you. So Paul is writing to encourage the church at Philippi. We'll learn later that the church in Philippi is experiencing some persecution and some suffering. And they have heard that Paul has been imprisoned. If you are a Christian, this can begin to worry you. You are suffering. Your mentor, your teacher, your pastor is in prison. Where is God in this? Why is God not protecting his church? Why are we suffering? What will the future be? So Paul is writing to encourage them to keep on going in the faith in spite of their suffering. So the first argument he makes is that sometimes suffering advances the gospel. I think we may have read this last week. I thought we were starting at 12, but that rings a bell with me. But anyway, and so one of the things we learn in Christianity is that often God uses difficult circumstances, even suffering, to develop our character and to advance the gospel. I think we talked about this at one time, that many of the important lessons we learn in life happen in difficult times, and that's when our character develops. So he wants them to know that what has happened to me, that is his imprisonment, has served to advance the gospel. And then he explains, people are hearing about Jesus because I'm in jail. The guard, those soldiers who are keeping me in prison, are hearing about Jesus. In fact, everyone in this whole court are hearing about Jesus. Paul was a very outgoing personality, a very strong personality. And so no doubt he was speaking to everyone around him and telling them about Jesus. Put a couple of words there in here, but just to see if you know them. Extrovert and introvert. Do you know those two words, extrovert and introvert? Paul was an extrovert. An extrovert is someone who is outgoing. They speak a lot. They enjoy people. They tend to be leaders, so on. An introvert is a quieter person. Looking around, I think probably there are more introverts than extroverts in the world. But some people just naturally are extroverts. One way to tell the difference is that I'm an introvert. Introverts enjoy people, enjoy being with people, but if an introvert is with a lot of people for a long time, they lose energy, and they need to be by themselves for a while to recover. Extroverts tend to gain energy when they are with people. They get more excited and more alive, and if they're not with people, they lose energy. So that's one way to tell the difference. But Paul was an extrovert, I think. He was not shy. He would talk boldly to whoever. So people are hearing about Jesus. And he says in verse 14, most of the brothers in the Lord have been encouraged to speak the word of God more courageously and fearlessly. You probably know this, but I'll just in case, I'll talk about adjectives and adverbs. So we have the noun courage. You all know what courage is? It's actually, fearless is a synonym of courage. Someone who has courage does not run away, but faces problems, and faces adversity, faces difficulties. They do not run away. A vivid image in my mind from 9/11, when the Twin Towers in New York were struck by the airplanes and collapsed. I can remember vivid pictures of people running from the towers with panic on their faces. But while they were running away, the firefighters and police were running toward the buildings. That's courage. That is courage. So then we have the adjective. Courageous. So this is the noun, and this is the adjective. You know, a noun is a naming word, and an adjective modifies a noun, or tells you something more about the noun. So somebody has courage, but you might describe Helen as courageous. That would be an adjective describing. And then to make it into an adverb, we often simply add ly. So an adverb, not very good. Let's see, we've got another one. An adverb modifies a verb. So if something is done with courage, it's done courageously. We just add the ly on them. So we've got two adverbs here, courageously and fearlessly. So of course, fearlessly means doing it without fear. So Paul's point is that because he has been bold to speak about Jesus, the other Christians are becoming more bold because they watch Paul. And he is so fearless and courageous that they begin to be more courageous and fearless themselves. So Paul was very much a leader in this. So Paul's point is that, writing to the Philippians, don't despair, don't worry that I am in prison. God is using this. God is at work here. So don't think he is not. That makes sense? Any questions on that, or any of the words here you'd like to ask about? What I'm saying clear? Are you fearless and courageous?
Sometimes.
And I'll teach you another word, or maybe you know it already. This word. A continuum. You know the word continuum? It means that in most, for example, virtues, courage is a virtue. Our pens are not very good today. Courage is a virtue. Fearlessness is a virtue. But no one is completely courageous. No one is completely full of fear. So a continuum is a range. So for Paul, maybe his courage would be way up here. For me, maybe my courage would be down here somewhere, but from weak to strong. So a continuum is a range. And so when we talk about a virtue or other descriptors, all of us fall somewhere on a continuum. Health is a continuum. No one is perfectly healthy, as strong and as healthy as they could be, but some people are more on the healthy end of the continuum, some more on the sick continuum. So anyway.
Is the word continuum still used in mathematical concept?
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that sometimes if we say a function is a continuum,
Okay.
since the first derivative of the function exists or something.
Okay.
We see that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's still used in mathematics, maybe in a special way. Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, let's go on then and read from verse 15 through 18.
Okay. It is true
Mm-hmm.
that some preach Christ
Christ,
out of
envy,
envy and rivalry,
rivalry,
but others out of goodwill.
goodwill. Good.
The latter do so out of love, knowing that I am put here for the defense of the gospel.
And accept salvation as a homage, and the word of God as a sword, which
Okay,
the
that
Spirit.
doesn't sound right. I'm not sure are you sure you're in Philippians? That sounded like you're in maybe Ephesians.
Yes.
Sorry.
Others.
That's okay.
The others do not proclaim Christ sincerely, but from the spirit of selfish ambition, they think that they will make more trouble for me while I am in person.
Was then only said in every way, whether in pretense or in truth. Christ is proclaimed, and in that I rejoice.
Okay, good. And we've got more than one translation from the Greek, so we've got a variety of words that we're using. In verse 15, let's look at the words there. It is true that some preach Christ. That's an important word in Christianity, Christ. It's true that some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. There's several words I want to use. So we've got, I heard both those words, preach and proclaim. I wonder if it would be helpful, and tell me if this is helpful or not, if with words like this, if I say them and then you all repeat it after me and try to imitate what I say. So do you want to try that at least? So, preach.
Preach.
Good, yeah, no, that sounds good. And this other one would be proclaim.
Proclaim.
Good, okay. These are synonyms. The meaning is slightly different, but they are synonyms. To proclaim is to articulate something to other people, to put it out in words, to make an assertion, to make a statement of some kind. If you're wanting to communicate or tell people something, that's to proclaim it. Usually means speaking aloud and boldly, wanting people to believe something. So Paul proclaimed that Jesus is the Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, the Savior of the world. He's making that announcement in a way. To preach is very similar, but we have come to use it for the message that the pastor brings on Sunday morning, and it's often 15 or 20 minutes or so. He will preach. He will say many things. So preaching is a little bigger than the word proclaim, but they are synonyms.
So for proclaim has one meaning, a sort of persuade.
Persuade, yeah.
Okay.
It involves, when you proclaim something, you want people to believe that it's true.
Okay.
You're trying to persuade them. That's good. When you preach, often you are talking for a longer period of time, but you are proclaiming something and you're trying to persuade people of something. Yeah. Good. We saw this word envy, and the adjective is envious. So envy is looking at another person and wishing that you had what they have. So if you write an examination at school and you get your mark back and you got 80%, you look over and David got 90%, you may feel envy. You want his grade. And often with envy comes a dislike of the person who has what you would like to have. You don't like him. He did better than you. Sometimes with envy, it also carries the connotation that life is not fair. I should have had that. Perhaps Tim was chosen, I don't know what, to be the class speaker, to speak on behalf of the class. And I think, I should have been chosen for that, not him. This isn't fair. Why did the teacher, that's envy. And a person who experiences envy is envious of the other person. So we've got envy and rivalry. So let's go back to the word envy. I notice that the letter V can be challenging for a native Mandarin speaker to learn. So let's just try that. If you repeat after me, envy.
Envy.
And V, to form that V. Yeah, that's the way it, like that. Envy. Good. Yeah, you can hear a little vibration. Envy. Envy. Good. Good. I think you just need to take your time a little more on. Don't rush over the word, but take your time on the V. And then the next word. And these are related. Rival and rivalry. A rival is a competitor, a close competitor. So, I'm trying to think of. I lived in Brazil at one time, and they are a soccer power, or a football power. You know the game of soccer?
Yeah.
Brazil has won the World Cup 5 times. One of their great rivals is Germany, that also is a strong country for soccer. So the two countries have a rivalry. That means an ongoing competition. Who is the best? That is a rivalry. So often in school, I think if you think back to when you were in school, if you were a good student, were you all good students at school? Often you would have a rival, someone who is close to you. And so you were always competing to who got the better mark on. So you had a rivalry with that person.
For the bad student, he also has a rival.
Yeah, I think almost every good student there will be a rival.
You mean they're competing for bad?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has to do with competition. So let's say those words again. We've got the letter V. So rival.
Rival.
Good, good. And rivalry.
Rivalry.
Good, good. Rivalry.
So how can I tell the difference between V sound and W sound?
Okay, let's spend some time on that. The V sound is V, and the W is W. W. It's a softer sound, and there isn't the vibration with the V.
But the issue is because my son also has this issue. When he in learning phonics, he can identify what and v. But when make it into one word, always is v. No
Okay,
one.
he always does the V sound.
Always is a W sound.
Okay, let me give you a couple of words, and we can practice these.
我本来有个问题，现在才知道都是问题。
the word
Yeah.
wonder.
Wonder.
And in English it has two related meanings. I can wonder about something. That means I'm thinking about it. I'm puzzling over it, turning it over in my mind. I wonder if I should do this. I'm thinking about it. But we also use it for something that is amazing. The Grand Canyon is one of the wonders of the world. When you see it, you are amazed and moved in your heart. So it's a wonder. So say that word with me. Wonder.
Wonder.
Good. Wonder.
Wonder.
So it's soft and there's no vibration.
Yeah.
But if we say the word envy, you hear the vibration. V, v. So wha and v. Wha, v. Or we could, sometimes the W has an H with it as well. We have lots of words like that. What are you doing tonight? What are you doing tonight? What? Can you, what? We don't, it depends on the English speaker, but often there's a little breath of air with the W, but not with the V. So if you put your hand in front of your mouth and say, what? What? Can you feel a puff of air?
Yeah.
If you're saying it correctly, you'll feel a puff of air. What? 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 I can feel a very pronounced puff of air, but that's my language. And for your comfort, when I learned Portuguese, there were sounds I could not make. And I've been studying Hebrew, and there are sounds that are so difficult for an English speaker to make. So, what? You should feel a little puff of air if you're saying it correctly. What? Or wonder. Also, we call that an aspirated sound because there is breath. Also, our letter P is an aspirated letter. If you're saying the P correctly, like in the word paper, you put your paper, you should feel air on your hand, paper. Whereas many other sounds, there's no puff of air at all. So that's the difference between W and V. So what and NV, v, and there's no air with the V. But with the W, there will be a puff of air if you're saying it correctly. The word vibrate, I said that if you're saying the V properly, there's a vibration, a slight vibration, which is a shaking, a vibration. That's what we call an onomatopoeic word. It doesn't matter to learn that, but an onomatopoeic word, the sound that is made is related to the meaning. So if I say vibrate, the vibration is there in the word. Another onomatopoeic word would be hiss. Hiss. Snakes or serpents hiss. So the word and the sound are related. They're close. We have lots of onomatopoeic words, but anyway. I hope that's helpful. Keep practicing. And I think my advice, especially on the V, is to take your time when you're saying those words. Don't rush through the word, but take your time to pronounce the V clearly. I've noticed that sometimes, too, for native Chinese speakers, the R and the L are confused as well. And yeah, R, L, R. So R comes from the back of the mouth. R, and L. So the L goes wider. L. So it just takes practice.
Onomatopoeic.
Onomatopoeic. Yeah, that's. We'll probably come across more words like that as we.
But I
As we
believe
go along.
the pronunciation from Chinese are much better than Japanese.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That they struggle
For
more.
toilet, they said toilet.
Computer.
Many special pronunciation from Japanese.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess you have to be careful who you listen to as well. Yeah. Another onomatopoeic word is crack. Crack. If you've heard a crack of ice, that sounds like the
Yeah.
word crack. Or snap.
Yeah.
Snap. The word sounds very much like. Okay, well let's go on. Some preach Christ out of envy and rivalry, but others out of goodwill. So in that case, the W doesn't have much sound, so I guess it depends on the word. If W is at the beginning of the word, it's followed by a vowel. It's often with a breath, but anyway, goodwill, you know the word, to have good intentions, to want the best for someone. So Paul is saying that the other Christians around him are becoming more courageous in speaking about Jesus, but there seems to be some people that don't like Paul for some reason. And they're happy that Paul is in prison. And they preach Christ out of envy and rivalry. They see Paul as a competitor with them for some reason. But Paul doesn't care. He says, whatever the reason, as long as Jesus is preached or proclaimed, he's happy. So he mentions selfish ambition. This is verse 17. The former, we should talk about that those words too. These are opposites. He says the former preach Christ, and we use that usually in conjunction with this word latter. So if we've talked about two people or two organizations, then we want to say something more, but we don't want to repeat their names. We can say the former, that means the first person or the first group that I mentioned. The latter would be the second or the last group that I mentioned. So that's common in English. The former, the latter. The first, the second of two in a pair.
Is that the latter refers to the one that just following, or just the former is the before me, right? The latter means something after me, right? Is that the case?
The word former can simply mean the one before me.
Okay.
So when I was pastor here, I could say the former pastor was so-and-so. He was the one right before me.
And the latter pastor is Ryan, right?
Yeah, I suppose you could say that.
Okay.
But when we use the two words together, former and latter, it's to distinguish between people that we've just talked about.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
former would be the first one we talked about. The latter would be the second one we talked about.
Okay.
Just to avoid having to repeat their names or the name of the organization. And it's just good English. So he says, the former preach Christ out of selfish ambition. So two words there to think about. Ambition, you know what ambition is? And the adjective would be ambitious. I think all of you would be ambitious to some degree because you left China to pursue a different life. You had a goal. You went for the goal, that requires ambition. People without ambition just stay where they are and they don't try to improve their life and so on. So that's ambition. Ambition can be a positive thing, a virtue. It can also be a negative thing. So Paul talks about people who have selfish ambition. So to be selfish is to think only of myself, not of other people. If I have selfish ambition, I will do whatever I can to get ahead of other people. A terrible example. I can remember when I was at university, sometimes the professor would assign certain readings, and the reading was available only in the library, and you couldn't remove it. You had to read it in the library. And I've heard of people going to the library, reading it, and then tearing out that article so that no one else could read the article. That would be selfish ambition. You want to be the best, but you do unethical things to get ahead. That's just being selfish. It's better to be ambitious for your family, for your country, for your firm, your employer or something. So selfish ambition, and they're stirring up trouble for me while I am in chains. That's a metaphor, to stir up trouble. Stir up trouble. Trouble is problems, difficulties. Paul is experiencing a difficulty. He's been put in jail, in chains. So he's in trouble. To stir up trouble, it comes from cooking. When you stir, when you're baking something and you stir to mix things together. Or if you're a builder, you stir cement. You put cement and add water and you stir to get it to the right consistency. That's to stir. But as a metaphor, to stir up something, trouble, might be simply to act to bring trouble to someone. That is to stir up trouble. I like to tease. Do you know the word to tease? To tease? To tease. I'll put it up there.
Flirt.
It's not exactly flirt, although it can be to tease. I tease my grandchildren often. It's a way of, it's a kind of humor. I can't even think of a good example. Well, I know with my granddaughter. I have a granddaughter who is 15. I drove her to youth group last night. And so to tease her, I'll say, were there any cute boys at the youth group? See, you understand, you get it. That's to, I was and she'll get red in the face. She'll get all embarrassed. Oh, Papa, no.
If any delicious, I will tease.
It's like the means amuse.
Amuse? Yeah, it's related, but tease has a specific meaning. It's a way of embarrassing someone, but in a nice way, a positive way. It's not mean. It's not hurting someone. But you have to be careful. If you tease in an area where someone is especially sensitive, it can hurt. So you have to be careful. But I often tease my family. I don't know why. It's a way of amusing, of bringing laughter and smiles. But my wife says, Ron, you're stirring up trouble because of my teasing. I'm stirring up trouble. So my son is a football fan, and so if his favorite team loses, I might tease him And I might say, how did your team do? And my wife will say, Ron, you're stirring up trouble. You're just getting people upset. But anyway, that's stirring up trouble. That expression.
Well, sometimes tease just add a flavor to your life, right?
That's right. That's good, David. Yeah, I'm adding flavor. It's bringing some laughter. I've often said, too, that boys tease the girls they like. So when boys tease a girl, it's usually a sign they like that girl, and they're trying to get a reaction from her, in a sense. But boys can be insensitive sometimes and tease when it's not well received by the girl as well. So anyway, so that's stirring up trouble. But Paul says in verse 18, but what does it matter? Okay, let's think about that word, matter.
Sorry.
Hello. So Paul says, what does it matter? Which is a way of saying it doesn't have importance. What does it matter? Or we might say, what is the matter? That means what is wrong or what is troubling you.
Okay.
So you might, if your child looks sad, you might say, what is the matter? Though we would always say, what's the matter? Meaning, what is wrong? What is troubling you? But matter can also mean just the subject. We might say, the matter at hand is English vocabulary. That's what we're talking about. The matter at hand. The matter under discussion is, should the city build a new swimming pool? That's the matter at hand. That's the subject. It's a word that has many nuances. But what does it matter? Paul says, he's saying it doesn't matter. There's no subject of importance here. I don't care, is what he's saying. What does it matter? I don't care. The important thing is that in every way, whether from false motives or true, Christ is preached. And because of this I rejoice. So Paul is saying that as long as people are talking about Jesus, he doesn't care if it's from selfish ambition or rivalry. He doesn't care. Is that clear? Or questions? Comments?
So what's the matter? Sometimes we also say, what's the issue? What's the problem?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Issue. Yeah, what's the issue? What's the matter?
Sorry, I confused on tease and tears. For example, I said one sentence when I'm facing the delicious food. So I am teasing or salivating.
Salivating?
That means when I'm facing one delicious food, I want to eat it. And then maybe I will have salivate, but can I use teasing?
No, that won't be
okay.
Teasing
teasing.
is different.
Okay.
To salivate would mean saliva.
Tears.
Oh,
Like a-
tears?
Yes, tears.
Like I know Chris always want to go to Alberta and tour the Jasper, right? And so sometimes I tease him saying, "You Jasper" or something. You just came back from Jasper.
Ah,
Right?
okay. Yeah,
But
that would be
that's
to
kind
tease.
of teasing you, right?
Yeah,
Like
to tease.
Yes, so that teasing, right?
teasing just make jokes, something stir up the
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
teasing is designed to make people smile.
yeah.
If you are successful, the
Yeah.
person will smile
Yeah.
or laugh back.
Yeah.
If you are unsuccessful, they will not. And then you'll know my teasing did not work. It was too sensitive or something.
Okay.
So the worst is if a boy teases a girl, but she cries rather than laughs or smiles. Yeah. And to salivate is from the word saliva, which is the moisture in our mouth.
Yeah.
So to salivate happens when we are hungry and we smell something or we see food and our mouth responds it's ready to eat
Yeah.
and wants
It's watery.
to eat. Okay. Yeah, that's quite different from to tease. Actually, there's one more meaning of to tease. We can say, I had to tease the truth out of her. I had to tease the truth out of her, which means withdrawing something gradually, bit by bit, just very gently out. So if my child is sad, but they won't tell me what's wrong, I'll ask questions, and get a little bit more information, a little bit more, until finally I understand what is really wrong. I'm teasing it out of them, which means just drawing it out a little bit at a time, just to tease it out.
So that means you tease something. Just means
It has nothing to do with humor. In
allure.
this case, it's very different.
Trying to allure.
Yeah, to lure something out, that's to tease it out. It means a very gentle approach to get something out of someone. Very gently, slowly, gradually. Yeah, that's a very different meaning of to tease. Okay, well let's go on. Let's see, we have enough time to do, I think. We'll at least start to read the next paragraph. Let's just read verse 19. 19 to 21. Let's read that much. So I think it's back over to David at verse 19.
For I know that through your prayers and God's provision of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance.
I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but I will have sufficient courage so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death.
Good reading.
And then verse 21. 21. And
For to me, to live is
Christ.
and to die is gain.
Good. And we'll just stop there. There's more, but I want to spend some time on this. He says, I know that through your prayers and the help given by the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me will turn out for my deliverance. So he's counting on their prayers. He's counting on God's hand on his life. He's in prison, remember, and it's possible he will be executed. But he is confident that through their prayers and the help given by God's Spirit, the Spirit of Jesus Christ, what has happened to me, my imprisonment, will turn out for my deliverance. That, in other words, that he will be allowed to leave prison. We use this in more than one way. The verb is to deliver. So if you order a package from Amazon, someone will deliver it. That means they'll bring it to your house. And we also would say that Pastor Ryan will deliver the sermon tomorrow. That's it. He will preach. He will speak it. He will bring it to you. That's to deliver. Deliverance means being set free in some way from a problem. We might say, if I'm in school in a class and the teacher has asked me a very difficult question and I don't know the answer, and the bell rings to end the class, we might say the ringing of the bell was my deliverance. It allowed me to escape from the problem that I was in, being asked a question that I did not know the answer. But the bell saved me It was my deliverance. So deliverance is being saved from something. Deliverance, and to deliver. And it's related to the verb in that something delivered his freedom, or brought his freedom to him. That's my deliverance.
So the deliver in our meaning of petroleum, rather engineering, we have another word, deliverability.
Okay.
Yeah, we define that means the productivity of the while or something.
Right. Right.
So deliverability or something.
And it's related to the idea that the oil will get from where it is to somewhere else. It will be delivered there.
Yeah.
So the capacity
or
the
ability or something.
ability to
Yeah.
do that is
Yeah.
the deliverability
Yeah,
of
deliverability.
something. Okay, yeah. And that's a good point that while we have general English, often different fields of study or
Yeah.
employment will have a special kind of language, and they
Yeah.
will use these words with a very specific kind of meaning. So just go a little bit farther. He says in verse 20, it's a long sentence and it may be difficult for you to understand what he's saying, but I eagerly expect and hope. Eager, and the adverb is eagerly. It means with excitement, with enthusiasm, with a very positive spirit. If you are eager to eat your dinner, it means you are really looking forward to it. You are doing it with enthusiasm. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed. Now what's he talking about? He's talking about a hearing that he will have, or a trial that will determine his fate. Use the word hearing in more than one way. To hear is to be able to collect sound in your ears, to hear. But a hearing is a meeting where you hear two sides to an issue. And it's a synonym would be a trial. So Paul is awaiting a hearing. He will come before a judge or a group of judges, and one side, we call that the prosecution, will say why they think Paul should be executed or imprisoned because he's preaching Jesus. He's upsetting people. He's going against our gods that we have in Rome, and so on. So one side presents that position. Paul would then defend himself. Explain, I'm a Roman citizen. I'm simply pointing to the Jewish hope, and so on. So the hearing is a type of trial that hears both sides of an issue. If, while you are a student at university, you are accused of cheating, there would be a hearing. You would be brought before some of the professors, and evidence would be put as to what you did. You would have a chance to defend yourself. That would be a hearing. So Paul is expecting a hearing that will determine his future. Will he stay in prison? Will he be executed? Will he be set free? So he says, I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed. Shame is ashamed is having the experience of shame. We have shame if we fail in some way, especially if we fail in terms of something that's ethical or moral. It's a failure to behave properly. So he would be ashamed if he fails to behave properly as a follower of Jesus. So his hope is, I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage, so that now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. To exalt something is to lift it up, but it's metaphorically. If someone is exalted, they're looked up to as important, as having achieved something. They are exalted. So Paul is saying that at that hearing, whether he is set free or condemned to death, he wants to honor Jesus by the way he faces whatever happens with courage, with calmness, with confidence, with even a smile on his face, accepting whatever happens. He doesn't want to embarrass Jesus by his lack of courage. I think what Paul means is that he doesn't want to beg for his freedom. He doesn't want to say, okay, I won't follow Jesus anymore if you'll let me go. Anything like that. That would be to dishonor Jesus if he did that, if he begged for his freedom. So he wants to honor Jesus, whether by life, being set free, or by death. He's very brave, and it shows what he most truly cares about, and that is the honor of Jesus. He cares more about the honor of Jesus than his own well-being, his own freedom even. So he wants to honor Christ with his body. This is a great challenge for every Christian when they are persecuted. Will I suffer bravely for Jesus, or will I renounce my faith? And I know that the history of the church everywhere, including in China, is a story of some Christians who have been arrested but have bravely even gone to their death for the sake of Jesus, and others who have renounced their faith. I'll finish with just those couple of words here. It's a C, it might be an S. I'm not sure. This might be an S. I can't remember how to spell that. But apostasy, I'm pretty sure it's an S. Let's put an S here. Apostasy, and the verb is apostatize. Apostatize. And that is to renounce your faith. I hope I've spelled those correctly. Apostasy is to turn away from your faith and say, I am no longer a Christian. So that act is to apostatize. To betray. That's what it means, to betray your faith. To walk away from your faith, to say, I will no longer be a Christian. Another word would be to renounce. To renounce your faith. It would be the opposite of announce. If I announce something, I am a Christian. If I renounce my faith, I say I am no longer a Christian, in order to...
Is it renounce is kind of a rescinded or
yeah, it's to rescind. That would be
cancel.
another fancy word.
Okay.
To rescind something is to take it back.
Okay.
So to renounce something is say it's no longer true. No longer true of me. To renounce. So it's interesting that Paul's great passion is that he'll honor Jesus no matter what. So that would be my hope as well. So we'll pick it up with verse 21 next week, where he says, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. So we'll think about that. To die would be to go to be with Jesus. So, but that's what we'll pick up next week at verse 21.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.